Alright, today we're going to talk about a document called the Rescission of Signature, and whether you are working through the status correction, research, master file blueprint, you'll have access to this Rescission of Signature template, or whether you're just a premium member, you can also access this Rescission of Signature template under the criminal matrix. And I just kind of put it there as a placeholder for now. So what is this rescission of signature about? Well, the thought process behind creating this tool is that when you are summoned to appear before, let's say, a court to answer to a certain complaint, claim, whether civil or criminal, usually when you look at that claim or complaint in this day and age, it's commercial in nature. Basically means it doesn't really have anything to do with the law as you may think. It just has to do with a commercial contract. Now usually you wouldn't know that. You probably know that because you're hearing me speak and you've studied this type of thing before. The average person would not know this. It would not be disclosed to that person. So they're thinking this has something to do with right or wrong or a crime that has actually been committed. They don't quite understand that terminology such as criminal is separate from crime, and it's these slight alterations of words that are actually misleading and could be grounds to rescind a signature based off of fraud and lack of disclosure. But you can't really assert such things if you don't know certain things. So when we come into the knowledge of it, we rescind these things. And why do we rescind these things? Because a lot of times what gives the authority for various claims to be liquidated against our assets, even against our estate being our body, is what allows it to take place is the presumption that we are in agreement and that we are in consent with various contracts of entities that have policies of controlling those various estates. So that's kind of like the law of agency, the Sesta KV law. There's another one like parens patriae or something. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. But and the admiralty, all of these laws are set up to govern the estate of another, pretty much, by the default. So there's things in records that you have to put in place to combat. So the first thing that we want to do in order to kill the presumptions that we are in agreement with any contract that forfeits any of our rights to property is we want to put in a rescission of signature. And a rescission of signature, I find we definitely want to base the rescission of signature on lack of disclosure and fraud, because these are not the type of things that somebody can really challenge you on when no one has ever told you that most of the things that you affix your signature to have financial undertakings and financial transactions associated with them. So this is a very powerful position to have, and let's take a look at it here. So as you see here, I'm kind of really proud of this because I actually like this. I think it's a very powerful document, especially when you read through it, and it's very plain, easy to understand. Something I started doing as best I can, so that you don't get wrapped up in sending too much paperwork and overloading people with paperwork. I can tell you from someone who people are always sending paperwork to, saying, can you review this, can you review that, which I typically don't. I try to keep everything now down into one page if possible. A rescission can be made into 2, 3, 4 pages. You can keep saying the thing over and over again in so many different ways. I've even done it more than a few ways in this short affidavit of rescission right here. But I think when you say it short and precisely, you understand what it means, they understand what it means, it's easier and better for you to stand on it, and the less that you say is the more effective that you actually can be. That's one of the things that I'm learning. So a lot of my endeavor is to reduce the size of the writings in the documents so that it's straight and to the point. You know what I'm saying? We're just trying to hit everything straight and to the point. We're not really trying to say anything extra, because when you start talking a lot of extra, it's like you're just slapping stuff in there because you're just hoping something works. No, these are tools to help us stand on top of what we already know. So I just want to show you that I'm trying to keep everything real short. Maybe some of you guys have noticed, even with the affidavit of beneficial ownership, I'm trying to keep these things down to one page so they can be read, they can be effective. Also, you see I have the numbering system here on the side, just like it's ready to be filed into a court. We have the space up here in the upper right hand corner so it can be recorded as a deed, which I think is also very powerful, because a lot of people think that there's no rhyme or reason to how the circus is behaving when you find yourself in one of these courts for various reasons. But I found a lot of things are being done for the purpose of getting your consent, and it'll continue to go on and go on, because that is the everything. That is what's necessary to start funding these accounts. That is part of what's necessary. So when you now, another problem is, say you created this affidavit at the time when they're trying to enter you into a controversy. Now you have the problem of them not wanting to record it, them not accepting it. And I'm not saying that you can't push the issue through, but them not wanting to accept the affidavit, of course, because they want to get you in a contract, so they're going to not record your instruments, this, that, and the other. But the point I was making about there being no rhyme or reason to the kangaroo court at times, or the circus court, would be because you don't, if you had something on the record already establishing and destroying the presumption that you have a contract with them, if you already have it positive facts on the public record that state to the contrary, they won't even waste their time, because that whole circus play is only for the purpose of getting some form of consent and contract with you. Before I read it, I have to admit this too, because I don't want to distract you when you're reading it. At least these first two lines, these came from someone else's work. There's a little bit of modification, but this may sound familiar to someone who is a well-known researcher in this field, and I just, someone sent me the document, so I really just can't give credit to that person, although I would like to. But I would just say, if it sounds familiar, yes. But again, our objective is to get these things done so that we can access the credit in our states and different things of the such. We have a specific goal, and we're objective oriented. So this is not about saying my work is better than them and look what I'm doing. No, not at all. I just could not have said these things better myself. And then I added a couple of other things in here. But let's just go ahead and read through this. So it's the affidavit of rescission of John Alex Doe, dated November whatever 2016, the registered mail article number there. I, Doe L. John, rescind any and all prior endorsements front and back, and decline any and all offers to contract, and reserve the right to reject all offers and bids, and do not concede to any presumptions of law with the parties, the U.S., the United States, the USA, Washington, D.C., the state of California, state of Ohio, county of Los Angeles, etc. I deny being liable or responsible for the errors and omissions of any offerer, partner of offerer, or their agents on behalf of the John Alex Doe agency and instrumentality of the United States. I make this rescission voluntarily and without prejudice on the grounds of fraud, misrepresentation, and concealment of material facts regarding the underlying financial transactions and the financial undertakings of the John Alex Doe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 instrumentality of the United States. I further make this rescission on the grounds that the responding parties, through their agents, have concealed information regarding my rights and entitlement over property that they are holding in trust under the administrative John Alex Doe agency instrumentality of the United States. I deny that I received full disclosure regarding the underlying financial assets, financial undertakings, and the accounting of interest to which I have affixed my signature under influence and duress and coercion of the perpetrators of fraud against the estate. I have reason to know that the agents doing the business on the estate through the John Alex Doe Agency instrumentality of the United States have misrepresented the character and legal status of the ens legis and are concealing material facts regarding the underlying financial transactions in such a way to deprive me of my interest and title and property and rights. I rescind and reject any contract with the above parties on the grounds that consent was not and is not free, mutual, or communicated bilaterally to each party, whereas the construction of a contract occurred before I obtained the age of majority, and wherein I have yet to receive full disclosure regarding the terms, conditions, reciprocity requirements, undisclosed governing laws, principles, and doctrines. I deny that I ever intended to forfeit rights and freedoms to receive a benefit wherein I became obligated to perform on obligations charged against my estate secured by my body, and any such consent shall be deemed for the record an issue under duress, threat, and coercion. I reject all benefits and liabilities stemming from previous contracts with the addressees, rendering null and void all contracts with the addressees, whether express or implied, explicitly, exclusively, and expressly reserving all rights and liberties without prejudice. Now also I have these witness statements down here, but these witness statement, it was my intention to thumbprint this, sign through, do the stamp, do that, do all of that in front of a notary so that they can attach the jurat, the affidavit statement to it. So just be conscious of that, because this really should be an affidavit statement. I was just kind of getting into this mindset where I really don't want to put the notary seal directly on any of our documents, because our documents are indeed private, but we can go before a notary and have them acknowledged, or we can have the notary attach their separate certification on the document as to say that they're not really owning it, they're just acknowledging it or certifying it so we can take it into the proper jurisdiction. Anyways, something else I wanted to note is that, let's go back here. We're going to go back here, because if you're working from the master file, the blueprint, then you will have this link right here, and this is an excellent link because this deals with California code. Unfortunately, you can't see the whole thing right here. Let me see if I can condense it a little bit. So what we have here is somebody really put all the resources in place. Rescission of contracts in California. So I kind of browsed through this. I went through all the essentials, the grounds for rescission, mutual consent, unilateral rescission on the basis of a mistake, fraud or duress, right? So I hit a lot of these key points, and I'm just sharing with you because when you do these things, you want to type in the rescission law for the state that you're in. Most things will be exactly the same. There may be some little differences, so you have to be just aware of those things so that your work can be tighter. Whether you did that or not, I don't think anyone's going to challenge your rescission, but just understand, since this rescission is going to be used for California, I take those things into consideration. This is why when you access these, you have a PDF version, you have a document version, so that you can actually go in here and edit and add things to it, or make it specific to a specific contract or case number or something like that. That is very significant and important when they have a presumed or perceived agreement. So there's another document under the criminal matrix, I believe it's called withdrawal of consent. It's probably better used after you already by mistake signed or gave some type of consent. And then I'll also say, if you do ever intend on fighting some type of criminal type of thing, it is very important that you consider upfront whether or not you intend to use a public defender, because that is where everything goes haywire. You will be in a much stronger position if you are going to fight it if you never used the services, you never agreed, you never signed to use those services of any of the public defenders, and you came in right at the very beginning with your pre-recorded affidavit of rescission showing that they have to provide strict proof of any contract that you entered into knowingly and agreeingly. A lot of times things won't move any forward just because you're up to that level of the game and they can't go any further, especially if this is already a matter of public record. So again, this is why you want to also be familiar with the rules of mandatory judicial notice and things like that. Now I hope excuse me, people that's been with the organization for a while can better understand and appreciate what I'm doing when I start laying out these little things, when I was putting this stuff out there under the criminal matrix. Now you have another piece of that, how it plugs right in. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Now, this affidavit of rescission, again, this kind of concludes that. That is we're saying that's kind of like the first step to the status correction in commerce. This is again part of the master file, which is basically the outline for the most two significant UCC filings, one being the registration of the security entitlement or the registration of title over the assets identified by the certificate of title, which is the certificate of live birth, and the other UCC1 filing being the secured party creditor filing. We're kind of saying the rescission of signature is first because it kind of goes along with the correction of any adhesion contracts that may throw you in the position of being a slave. I think that should go first. Some of my brothers think that we should do that after we do the national filing. The national filing happens in the state that recognizes international contracts. I found that to be Maryland. You can click here. That's more information about where to file. But this was just about rescission, so I'm not going to really completely go into this. But I did want to give you some oversight of why this is here, because I think that I want to have this rescission document recorded in the county shortly before I begin to do these higher forms of things of correcting the status. Okay. Right. So let's leave that.